Welcome to the Prepped and Polished podcast, the podcast that empowers you to take control of your education. Featuring weekly interviews with influencers in the world of education, as well as tutoring tips, lessons, and updates. And now, here's your host, Alexis Avila.
Hi everyone, this is Alexis Avila of Prepped and Polished, a tutoring and test prep company that provides in-person and online tutoring for all types of exams, private school test exams, college entrance exams, grad school, academic subjects, tutoring such as math, science, English language, and study skills coaching. For more info, please check out preppedandpolished.com. Also, make sure to go to www.preppedandpolished.com and sign up for our monthly newsletter. I welcome you to the Prepped and Polished podcast, where we interview amazing and inspiring guests in the world of education, as well as offer tutoring and test prep tips, lessons, updates. Get to know the Prepped and Polished community. You can find us on Facebook by searching Prepped and Polished. You can find us on Twitter at Prepped Polished. Instagram, we're Prepped and Polished 1. And joining our show today is third grade teacher and author Doug Robertson. Doug's book, entitled He's the Weird Teacher, is an insightful and fascinating view on how to educate and interact with our children in a creative way. On today's show, Doug will talk about how teacher personality plays a role in the classroom and how he uses creative teaching approaches to engage and bring out the best in his students. To our listeners, you can submit a guest at any time, radio@preppedandpolished.com. I love hearing from you. Doug, thanks for coming on the Prepped and Polished podcast. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Hanging in there. So
thanks for having me.
Sure. I was wondering if you could focus on a couple pivotal moments that brings you here with us today as a teacher and also as an author of a new book called He's the Weird Teacher. Yeah,
for sure.
So what brought you to us as a teacher? Have you always wanted to be a teacher? And how long have you been a teacher?
I have always wanted to be a teacher. I'm one of those kids that when I was 9 or whatever decided I wanted to be a teacher and then actually did it. And then when I got to college, I had an education major, which is always fun when you go to college. You have an education major, and then people are like, what are you studying in college? And you say, education. And they're like, well, duh. What are you studying? No, really, education. And then never changed my major. So I wanted to be a teacher for forever, as far as I can remember. And I've been teaching for 9 years now. This is my 9th year in my third state. So I'm in Oregon now. I started in California and then moved to Hawaii, taught in Hawaii for 6 years, and this is my second year here.
What type of student were you growing up, and can you describe your favorite teacher?
Oh yeah, I was a good student. I played the game. Like I knew how to. I was good at school. I was good at playing school. So I did all my homework. I don't think I missed a day of school until I was in high school. Like my parents were really on top of me about school is really important. You got to get good grades and all that stuff. So I did all of that. I was terrible at math. I hated math, which I think makes me a more empathetic math teacher. I've been thinking about that a lot recently because my kids, right now we're doing long division, and some of them are just hating life. And I keep telling them, I understand. I understand. I was not good at this, and this is how I figured it out. This is the tricks that I was using. And it also informs the stuff that I'm doing in my classroom. Like I don't do timed multiplication tests. Multiplication is important. The fluency is important.
Yeah.
But I vividly remember sitting at the kitchen table with my mom for what feels in my memory like hours, crying and fighting and just hating everything about trying to memorize this stuff. And I don't want my kids to do that. I don't want them to feel like that about math. Plus, multiplication fluency a little less important now than it was then. I have a cell phone. They all either have cell phones or will soon have cell phones. Those have a calculator. So they need to know like the mechanics of it, but they don't need to be quite as fluent as maybe we convince ourselves they need to be. So I was a good student. I was bad at math, and I had awful handwriting. My teachers would make me write in pen because my pencil would get so dull that you can't read it, and my handwriting was bad anyway.
Oh, okay.
And then I forgot the second part of your question because I talked.
Oh, no, and I was wondering if you had a teacher that inspired you, if that.
Oh yeah. The teachers that always popped into my head from grade school were there's a teacher named Mr. Greatman, who was my social studies teacher in middle school, which for me would have been 7th or 8th grade, and he was funny. That's what I remember. He was really good at his job, and he was also really funny. I think that a lot of the stuff you learn in elementary school is less about remembering all those facts and figures and everything that the teacher's trying to teach you, and it's more about learning how to learn and learning how to persevere and learning how to find answers, stuff like that. And he was really good at that. So I might not remember all the specific social studies things that he taught us, but I remember his attitude in class, and I remember how light everything felt.
Nice.
And then I had a teacher who was similar to that in high school. My language arts teacher was Mr. Oh, his name just went away. He was, but he was the journalism teacher, and he was the AP language arts teacher, and he was really interesting, and he was really funny, and he was very engaging. And he would say stuff to kids that I don't think I could get away with saying, but stick in my head. He told it, you know how when you have an annoying kid in class, one of the tricks that you try is you move them around the classroom. So I'm going to put you over here. Okay, you don't work in this group. I'm going to put you way up in front. Maybe you won't talk if you're up in front. Okay, you're still talking. You're still being annoying. I'm going to put you way in the back so I don't have to look at you. Okay, you're still really annoying way back there. And
Right.
he had a kid like that. And one day he looks at the kid and he goes, "Have you ever had a rock in your shoe?" And the kid goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "And you know how you move the rock or all around your shoe trying to find a comfortable place for it, but you can never find one?" And the kid goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You're my rock." And that was probably 20 years ago now, and I still remember that because it was just so funny, and I could never say that to a kid because it's a terrible thing to say to a student, but it's real funny.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, so for us who don't know, if we don't know, we should know, but can you tell us about your book, He's the Weird Teacher, and what's the story behind the title?
Everybody should know about my book. Shame on you guys for not knowing about the book. He's the Weird Teacher is the book that I wrote starting my last year in Hawaii, so it came out last year, but it's just kind of now catching speed because it's independently published, so you know, all the promotion is word of mouth and anything I do. And it's a teaching philosophy book more than a how to teach book. It's more of a why to teach, because there's thousands of books on the market. This is how you better teach fractions. This is how you better teach English, and I'm not that guy. I'm not good at data. I can tell you how to teach fractions. I can tell you how, but that's not interesting. I don't like those books. They're helpful, but I don't want to read them. So I wrote a teaching book that I would want to read, and it's full of funny stories about students and the reasons why I teach and the way I think about teaching. So it's stuff like, this is how I think you should discipline, and this is why I think you should discipline this way. And here's a story to illustrate my point about why I think you should discipline this way. And this is why you need to listen to your kids more carefully, because sometimes kids say things that adults translate differently than kids translate. And here's a funny story about that. So it's full of that kind of stuff. And I tried to, it's not a heavy book. It's got some heavy moments. I hit a little bit on stuff like all of the testing and everything like that. I don't get as heavy into that as a lot of other books do. I do touch on the school safety stuff, school shootings, and how people react to that and how politicians react to that, because I had to say something about it, but I didn't want it to drag the book down when I write the next one, I'll probably spend more time on those two topics because I feel like they're important and I feel like I have stuff to say about them.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, it's supposed to be funny with but whipping a little message on you at the same time, which is
Nice.
kind of how I feel like my classroom is. And then the title comes from two kindergartners. I was walking down the hall in Hawaii, and I like messing with kindergartners because they're tiny and they're so much fun and they're so weird. So like if you see a line of kindergartners walking down the hall, you put your hand out because the kindergartner cannot resist the high five. They can't. It's impossible. They have to give the high five if they see a hand. And it ruins their line because they like jump out of line to give you a high five, and it really irritates the teacher, so it's a lot of fun.
Nice.
Or you stick your tongue out. I love doing that. You stick your tongue out at a kid, like just in the middle of the line, because they look at you and they walk by. You stick your tongue out really quick, and then you stop, and they can't believe it because a grown-up just stuck his tongue out at me. Grown-ups don't stick their tongue out at kids. What's going on here? So it kind of freaks them out a little bit, and they think it's funny. And then every time they see you, they will stick their tongue out at you, and their friends will stick their tongues out at you. And they smile when they do it. So now I have kids who are smiling at school and liking being at school and liking seeing me at school, which is kind of bringing up the whole attitude of the environment. So I was walking down the hall one day, just going from one place to another place, and two kindergartners were sitting outside their classroom. And as I walked past them, I heard one of them lean over and whisper to the other one, "He's the weird teacher." And it made my day.
Wow.
And it gave me a good title.
That's a good one. Doug, what types of qualities come to your mind when you think of a good teacher?
Shouting. No.
That leads to my next question. What makes a bad teacher?
The qualities of a good teacher are the big one that I think is empathy, and I think that's something that we sometimes forget. We get to work with kids, which is awesome, but sometimes we forget that they're kids. So I have all of these expectations for them, and I have all of these high things that I really want them to do, which is important. But sometimes even I forget that they're kids, and this is hard, and this is new. This is the first time they're seeing some of this stuff. So when you're teaching long division and they're not getting it, and you're like, "Oh my God, it's a 3 and then it's a 6. Why are you not?" Okay, this is the first. You've seen this for like 3 hours. There's a reason you're not. Sorry, I need to step back. And so the empathy, I think, the more empathetic you are with the kids, the better teacher you are, because it will lighten the mood in your classroom. It will make things more fun. The kids will feel the empathy and they will respond. One of the chapters in the book is called "They Will Learn from." I don't know if it's actually called this. I can't remember now because you write something and then you forget what you said.
Happens.
But it's they will learn from fear, but they will try with love. And I think that's really important. You can have a scary classroom, and I know teachers, not so much here, but in Hawaii, I knew teachers who had a scary classroom, and they were mean, and they were real intense, and their discipline was super heavy-handed. And their kids were well-behaved, and they did well on the tests, and they did well on all of the assignments, and their lines were straight, and their room was quiet. But they did not like school. My class is the kind of the polar opposite of that. It's very noisy, and my lines are pretty good, but this year especially, they're not so great. And but there's lots of talking in my classroom, but it's all. If your class is going to talk, you got to give them something constructive to talk about.
Right.
Because they're going to talk anyway, so you might as well aim that. And because of the empathy thing, they like being in class. There's a relationship here, so they will. When they come to me and their work is not fourth grade quality, I can say, "This is not fourth grade quality. You need to do better. You know you can do better." And they will go back and actually try to do better. And that's not a blanket. Some kids are like, still. But they're much more likely to give me a good effort right away and give themselves a good effort right away because they like school and they like being here.
That's a really good point.
That's qualities of a good teacher. Some of.
Do you Do you get any resistance from parents about your style of teaching?
I've never gotten out loud resistance, and I've gotten that question a bunch of times. And I've always kind of expected it,
Right.
but I think that, and I don't know how egocentric this sounds or whatever, almost all of their kids like my classroom.
Okay.
And
That's
so
always a good,
I think a lot of parents, as long as the kids are happy, even if the parent is like, this teacher has blue hair and he's standing on the desks and he's got no legs on some of his desks and I don't really know what's going on, but my kid seems to be learning and my kid seems to be enjoying going to school, so whatever. And I kind of feel like that's how I get away with some of the weirder stuff that I do, is because the kids like it, so the parents are like, okay. I've had parents wonder why I don't give very much homework. How come you're not giving more? I really want my kid to have worksheets every night, and I have to kind of explain to them, okay, that I don't think that helps, and I don't want to steal your family time to be giving you all of this homework, and the volume of practice is not going to help them after a certain point. They can divide now. They don't need to do 30 division problems. They can do it. And they've proven to me that they can do it. I don't need them to just keep doing it for no reason. So sometimes that's a weird little shift for some of the parents, because they expect, like my second grader has a ton of homework. How come my fourth grader doesn't have a ton of homework? Just not the way I teach. Just not the way I want them to be learning. Every once in a while I get a parent that pushes back, but a lot of times that's a personality. Everybody, I still have personality conflicts with a couple of kids and a couple of parents. Nobody loves everybody, but for the most part, it's pretty positive.
Awesome. And what kinds of cool stuff have you been working on lately in your classrooms?
The thing that I'm really excited about this year is my class this year is real. It's a weird chemical mix of kids. Just I got a lot of talkers and a lot of unfocused kids and a lot of ELD kids, English second language, ESL kids, and a lot of a very wide range of ability kids. And it's a mix that is harder than just about any other mix that I've ever had. So I spent a lot of the early year being frustrated and trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? And finally I decided I need to change the physical space of my room, because something needs to change. So I need to change the physical space in my room. And so I had never thought about this before. I took the idea from a teacher friend named Jess Lifshitz, who teaches in Chicago. I know her from Twitter and stuff, who had started doing this with her kids, I think is where I got the idea. I might have gotten the idea from somewhere else, and I'm forgetting it. But I took the legs off of all of their desks. So they got the traditional desk, with the hole in the middle. You can put all your stuff in. So I flipped all the desks over and pulled all the legs off. So now they're sitting on the floor. So the kids have to sit on the floor. And that, just that little change, making their bodies do something a little bit different, really worked. And the kids, it kind of clicked to the classroom a little bit better. And then I started giving them options. Okay, do you want a standing desk? Because I will put the legs back on, but I will put them as far up as I can. So you have to stand while you're working. And you can sit for longer period stuff. But for the most part, you need to be standing. Or you can be sitting on the floor. You can bring in pillows. And I went to Donors Choose, and I got some beanbag chairs and some wobble stools and stuff like that from Donors Choose. And now my classroom is a really interesting mix of desks that are sitting on the floor and desks that are standing. And one or two kids who were like, I don't like either of those things. I just want to be sitting in a chair.
Yeah,
so
sure.
That's fine.
Do the regular.
However you learn best. So I have a couple of desks that are still like like you would expect a traditional desk to look. And it's one of those things that's constantly changing. And that was another thing that I had to remember not to get frustrated with at the beginning, because the first 2 weeks or so of that was every day there were like 4 kids. Can I have a standing desk? Can you take the legs off my desk? I want a regular desk. And it was like, oh my God, you guys, and just leave it for like 2 minutes. Just let it. The kids, and it's probably uncomfortable to sit on the floor like that. I need to let them experiment. That's what the point of this is, to experiment. I need to let them experiment. So every day after school for a few weeks, I was putting legs on and taking legs off and changing the heights. But now we've kind of settled in, and now every once in a while a kid will want to change. But every once in a while you want to change, and I understand that. So the flexibility thing is real important in my classroom, I think.
Wow.
And it helps I feel better in my classroom. I think my kids kind of feel better. It flipped a weird little switch that we needed to flip. And now next year I'm really excited about kind of starting the school year with no legs on desks, just to see what happens and see how the kids and the parents react when they walk in and they're like, what is going on in this room? Why is there no legs on these desks? It'll be really interesting.
Pretty cool.
Everything is an experiment. Teaching should always be an experiment.
Tell us about your blog. It seems like you're building a community is forming.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy to me. The blog is also he's the weird teacher.blogspot.com, and it's where I use it for mostly 2 things. I use it to document stuff that I'm doing in my classroom. So I've got, I think, 3 blogs about the seating experiment. And then when we did a cardboard arcade that I got from the YouTube video Kane's Arcade. That's what they shared with me on Twitter. So my kids did that before Christmas break, and they really liked that. And it was all problem solving. So I've got a write-up about that and some videos about that. So I use it for that. And then I also use it for my Twitter chat. I have a weekly Twitter chat on Wednesdays that's called #WeirdEd, ED. And I always write up a thing about what are we going to talk about this week? What's our topic? Why did I pick this topic? So, for example, this week we talked about Big Hero 6, the movie, because for 2 reasons. Most ed chats don't do that. We're going to talk about discipline this week, or we're going to talk about how you teach fractions this week. That's how a lot of the Twitter chats work. Okay. And some of them are very well written, some of them are very good. It all depends on the questions in the group, but some of them are real boring. Or real samey. We've had this conversation before. Why do we need to have this conversation again? And I don't like doing that. So my Twitter chat, we talked about Big Hero 6 this week because I adore that movie. I think it's almost perfect. And it's got so many good messages that teachers can steal, and it's got so many good messages that students can pick up on. So I wrote 7 questions about Big Hero 6 and how that kind of translates into teaching and into classrooms and into kids, and how can we use this and how can we use that. But in order for the questions to really work, in my head at least, I have to write a thing about it. So I always write a blog, and then I write the questions, and the blog kind of helps solidify the questions for me in my head, and then I share it with everybody so they know this is kind of the goal, this is what I'm thinking, this is why I picked this topic, and then so they're kind of ready for the questions when the questions start. So those are the 2 things I really use the blog for, on top of buy my book. So I've got the background is the covers of the book, and I got the links to buying the book on Amazon and on Nook and on Kindle and Smashwords and all of that good stuff. And this kind of feeds into the community thing. When I wrote the book, because this is connected to the blog, when I wrote the book, nobody's who's gonna read this book about teaching that I wrote? Nobody knows who I am. So I wrote the book because I had to write the book. These are all teaching ideas that I have inside me. They need to get out. I need to feel like I've written the book about teaching that has all of these ideas that I feel like are unique to me, and see if they are unique to me. Am I a crazy person, or do other people actually feel this way? But who knows who's going to read it? It's independently published, so like I said, all of the promotion is word of mouth.
Right.
So probably my mom is going to read it, and my dad is going to read it, and my wife is going to read it, and that's probably all. Maybe my best friend will read it. That's kind of what I figured, is like that's all that's going to happen. And then it's like because I think it's good, but I don't know. I wrote it. Of course I think it's good.
Right.
And then it kind of people would start picking it up, and I priced it in a way that helped people pick it up. The ebook is $5.99, I think, $4.99,
Nice.
which kind of makes it like, this is worth taking a risk on. And the paperback is pretty reasonable for a paperback on Amazon. I think it's running at $10.99 or
Yeah.
$11.99 on Amazon for the paper, which is also like, it's not bad for a paperback. I'll take a risk on that. And I started getting lots of feedback. I really liked your book. If I'd have had this book last year, I had a really bad year, and if I had this book, it would have really helped me. And your book is really funny. And people, well, the most surprising thing to me, the most gratifying thing was, I thought I was the only one. I've gotten that so much. I thought I was the only teacher who thought like this. I thought I was the only person who was weird. It's so nice to see other people teach like this and think about education like this. And that comment kept coming up, and it was like, oh my God, there's a community here that we did not know of. There's so many of us, and that is so cool. And it kind of unintentionally, this was not my goal, but it unintentionally gave all of these weird teachers a rallying point. It gave everybody like, this is who I am. This is who I am as a teacher. And it's not like Dave Burgess's book, Teach Like a Pirate, which is apparently a very good book and people love it. And I'm not cutting on it at all. But that's kind of like, you should teach like a pirate. My book is more like people realizing, oh, this is who I am. This is the way I teach. I am a weird teacher. I don't teach exactly like Doug does, but I'm a weird teacher. So do you see the kind of difference between the two? Like, you should be like a pirate, and you already are a weird teacher. It's kind of how I think about it. Right. You just didn't know it, or you didn't have a name for it, or you have, because a lot of us, I have these ideas, and I want to try these things, but I'm really shy, and what if they don't work, and what if people think it's weird and it's different, and I don't know how this is going to go and how the kid's going to react, and then I have those feelings, and then I go for it anyway. Like, I don't know how this is going to work, and then we jump off the cliff. That's kind of the way I do things in my classroom. And if it doesn't work, then we'll get back on and we'll try something else. And so that kind of gave people who felt like I could be a weird teacher the confidence to, I'm going to try something new. And the blog kind of helps perpetuate that, because now I'm talking about, this is the thing that I did that totally didn't work. But at least we tried it, and this is the thing that I did that kind of worked, and this is how it kind of worked, and this is how it failed. And I feel like that kind of education community is really important, because then it makes, if you see somebody else trying something and failing, it almost gives you permission to also try something and fail. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not like I set out to, I'm going to be the leader I'm going to be the king of the weird teachers,
Sure.
and they're all going to follow. It's not what it was, but it
just happened.
It just kind of happened that people started paying attention and started like, yeah, this is what I think too, and that's really cool.
That's amazing. So what's next for you? Any more books coming out?
I wrote a very short book. It's not even, it's only 19,000 words, which makes it not really a book. Most books for publisher purposes are 50,000 words or more. But once you hit 50K, you're in novel territory. He's the Weird Teacher is like 65,000 words, so it's well within that.
Oh.
This is only 19,000 words, and I wrote it really short because it's called The Teaching Text, You're Welcome. And kind of the idea behind it is it's the most pretentious, over-the-top teaching book you've ever read. It's kind of like my response to hoity-toity teaching books. So the book is, and this is in the disclaimer at the beginning, the book is set in a fantasy alternate dimension where He's the Weird Teacher got mega popular, and all of the fame went straight to my head. And now this is the kind of teaching book that I write once I think that I am an edu-god. And so it's just, the whole thing is like talking directly out of my rectum. It's just the most over the top. I understand that you think you should be teaching like this, and you're wrong. But it's not your fault that you're wrong. You are not the kind of teacher that I am. Let me tell you how you should be teaching. And it's just, it's funny. When you write something like that, you have to go way far for it to not be annoying, and to like get the funny, you've got to go way over the line. And so it's a lot of way, way, way over the line with how wonderful and how incredible I am. And these are all the wonderful and incredible things that I do. And hopefully it's funny. The feedback that I've gotten from it is fun. It's when you write something, when you create something, and I'm sure you feel like this with the podcast sometimes, the creative process is a lot of, this is brilliant, this is okay, this is awful, oh my God, I should set this on fire, this might be okay. Yeah. And that's kind of where I'm at with it now. Like, this is probably okay. I think it's funny, but I can't tell anymore. I've read the same jokes a dozen times, and I don't know if they're funny anymore. But I think it's good. So that's awesome. The teaching text. You're welcome, and I'm dropping it on April 1st because that sounds funny to me. It's a funny book about teaching. Drop it on April Fool's Day, and it's going to be super short. The ebook is going to be priced at 99 cents.
Oh, nice.
Because it's so short, and I want people to pick it up. The paperback, I wasn't even going to do a paperback, and then I was like, yeah, it might be fun to have a paperback. People don't have to buy it. It's going to be, I think, $4.99 or $5.99, which also is pretty reasonable for a little tiny, like, mega pamphlet, basically. But hopefully it's really funny, and it's just the most over-the-top teaching book you've ever read about how it kind of takes everything that he's the weird teacher is and flips it on its head and blows it up and magnifies it.
What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Twitter probably is the easiest way to get a hold of me. If your listeners want to reach out, I'm at the weird teacher, because branding is important.
Yeah.
If they're not on Twitter and they really want to reach out, I love talking to teachers. I adore teachers. And I especially adore new teachers, like student teachers. Love student teachers because that's how I'm building my army. I'm getting my hands on student teachers and saying, this is the way I think you need to teach, and this is the way you need to think about teaching, and this is how you need to work with students. Come with me. And then I get them. I've had student teachers before, and I told them, this is what I'm doing to you. You teach the way I think you should teach and the way I think you should think about teaching. And then you go forward and you spread that into your students. And then after you've been teaching for a while, you have a student teacher and you teach them the way I taught you. And then that spreads. And soon I will have an army of weird teachers who all teach the way I teach. And education will be all unicorns and rainbows and rock and roll. That's my goal.
Sounds like a good
so
goal. They
can get in touch with me through Twitter. Watch as I go off on tangents. Or if they don't have Twitter, the book has a Facebook page, Facebook.com/The Weird Teacher, I think it is. But if you just search He's the Weird Teacher on Facebook,
it's He's the Weird Teacher on Facebook.
Okay, so there you go. And then if you don't have Facebook and you don't have Twitter and you just want to email me, then it's theweirdteacher@gmail.com. And I'm happy to talk to teachers and student teachers, and people have emailed me out of the blue like, I need advice, and I'm like, I'm this person now. I did not realize I was this person now. I'm more than happy to talk to you. I do not have all of the answers, but I will tell you what I think.
Doug, to any kids or teens listening to the podcast, any advice before they cross into that new uncharted territory of like middle school, high school, college?
And this is hard for most teenagers and most kids. Embrace your weirdness. Everybody thinks that they are strange. Nobody feels normal. At this point in my life, I'm positive that that's true. Nobody looks around and thinks, I am a normal person. Everything I do is normal. Everybody looks around and thinks, oh my God, I'm so weird. This thing that I just did is the coolest kid in the room thinks that he's being weird or she's being weird.
Right.
So I would embrace who you are and embrace being weird and thinking those weird thoughts, because those are the interesting people. Those are the artists. Those are the writers. Those are the creators. And if you have a thing that you want to make that thing, and don't be afraid that it sucks. Just make it. And if it sucks the first time, make a new thing, and that will suck slightly less. And then make a new thing, and then that will suck slightly less. But don't not. So embrace your weirdness and make the things that you feel like you need to make, and just be confident in who you are, which is really hard for teenagers and kids. Like, I want to fit in, I want to be like everybody else. Just do you. Do what you think is cool, and allow that to evolve and change. And you don't always have to be into the thing you're into right now, and it's okay. Which is all, like, I'm really into I'm a heavy metal guy, or I love heavy metal and punk rock and hardcore and all of that stuff. But the Taylor Swift song, Shake It Off, I freaking love Shake It Off. It's great. It's so catchy. It's ridiculous. I don't know how much I like it. The Ricky Martin big hit that he had, Livin' La Vida Loca. I know every word in that song. And me in high school would have been like, shut up, dude. You cannot, no, you listen to heavy metal. You cannot admit that you like Ricky Martin. You need to be quiet. We like heavy metal, and everybody knows that we love heavy metal. And at this point, I'm like, whatever. This is what I like. And, well, this is most of what I like, but I also like this weird stuff sometimes, too. I don't like all of it, but, be cool with, like, what you like is what you like, and don't let anybody tell you that it's dumb.
I have to do a plug out to my little brother's heavy metal video game band, Power Glove. I don't know if you checked them out. But,
oh, that's awesome. What a great name for a band. Power Glove?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
They write songs about...
It's all video
games?
Super Mario Brothers, Batman. Yeah. Pretty cool.
Nice. Are they on, like, the YouTubes?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, cool. I'll check it out. Thanks. Cool. They probably know about Miracle of Sound. He's a guy that writes music for about video games. He writes music about video games. His name is Miracle of Sound, and that's who he is on Twitter, too, at Miracle of Sound. His name is Gav. He's Irish, and he's awesome. So if they don't know who he is, they should check him out and get kind of inspiration.
Oh, cool. I'll text up my little brother. So, Doug, thanks for coming on the show on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out.
And this wraps up our show today with teacher and author of He's the Weird Teacher, Doug Robertson. To learn more about Doug's amazing work with students, visit his blog, www.he'stheweirdteacher.blogspot.com. And make sure to check out episode 57. We'll be doing another tutoring tips episode. Thank you for joining us on the Prepped and Polished podcast. Now go out there and take control of your education.
You've been listening to the Prepped and Polished podcast. For more information, check out preppedandpolished.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.